We are here with Simon Sinek. Everyone knows Simon Sinek in this chat. I know the entire group was excited. Simon is, to me, one of this generation's best leaders and thought leaders and thinkers. And we're so excited to have him for a short time here. And we're going to blitz him with a whole bunch of questions. And so before we get into the conversation, I want to encourage you guys. We have a Q&A. We got an open Q&A. Ask as many questions as we can. Obviously, we can't get to them all. But I'm excited to ask Simon some spicy questions. So let's get into it. Simon, just first of all, I want to know, listen, we're a year into this pandemic. How are you feeling? Are you exhausted?
The human being is a remarkably adaptable animal. And for better or for worse, I think we've adapted to sort of this strange world for now. Like, we know how to put on a mask and go to the supermarket and feel safe and make others feel safe. And, we all want it to be over, of course. And one of the things that I think is really important is for all of the stress and strains and additional sort of hardship that is put upon us, and some people have suffered more than others. I'm a great believer that there's always balance. And then that means there's also lessons to be learned, and learning how we respond under stress and strain, and learning who our true friends are and who we want to sacrifice for and who has surprised us and sacrificed for us. I think those kinds of lessons and those kinds of realizations have really helped.
Well, it certainly has exposed a lot, and you're definitely right. I think we've found out who our true friends are. I want to get into it. We have a lot of ambitious leaders in this conference. And, you wrote this great book on the infinite game. It's funny. A lot of the university students, they come out of school and they're driven, they're passionate, they're ambitious, and then they get into the workforce and they're faced with, I guess, finite leaders or folks with a finite mindset. And it almost sucks away all their infinity. So can you tell us, how can somebody coming out of school really fight against this and challenge the status quo?
So remember when you were a senior in high school, and then you went and started college and you were just a freshman again, and you went from owning the place to being the smallest fish in the pond, and you sort of go through that cycle, and you have to rebuild and relearn and make a name for yourself. Graduating college and starting the workforce is much the same. And you're right. All of that idealism, when you go work for a company that, all they're doing is pummeling into you, bottom line, and they don't share your idealism. One of the things we have to do is surround ourselves with people who share our idealism. We have not only safety in numbers, but we stay inspired in numbers. If I was by myself, I would have lost my idealism years ago. But, I speak loudly and I speak clearly about the world that I imagine. I imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning inspired, feel safe wherever they are, and end the day fulfilled by the work that they do. And people who hear that and believe in that, it's like a clarion call. And we take care of each other. I have a fundamental belief, when you find people who share your cause and integrity and honor and things like this matter to them, that we have a moral responsibility to help each other. And sometimes that just means calling them up and being like, I gotcha. And so keep the people who share your idealism around you, because they will keep you idealistic. Yes. We enter into these finite companies, but that doesn't mean we just get angry and abandon. It means we can inspire the people around us. I talk about it all the time. Be the leader you wish you have. Be the leader you wish you had. At some point, those leaders are going to leave, retire, get poached, move on for more money, who knows, whatever. And don't we want to be there to replace them, because we want to lead the organization in the way that we imagine. So surrounding yourself with other people who believe what you believe is really, really, really important.
I love that. Well, one of the questions I'm really fascinated in asking you is, we see this unbelievable revolution when it comes to influencers with creators. I know, there's certain polls that you see, people from ages to 8 to 12, the thing that they want to be the most is to be a YouTuber or to be a vlogger. And we're seeing this sort of creator revolution happen. But I'm just curious, do you think our society has a problem with chasing fame? I'm just curious to get your mindset on that.
Well, the mere fact that question exists, I think answers your question. Yeah, of course. I mean, there's nothing wrong with hierarchy. I mean, human beings are naturally hierarchical animals. We're constantly organizing ourselves into hierarchies. You sit in a meeting, you adjudge who's more senior, who's the alpha. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is the responsibility that goes with being an influencer or an alpha or a leader, which is, biologically, anthropologically, our leaders are supposed to look after us. It's like a parent, right? And so, though people want the perks of influencer, they want the money, they want the fame, they want the recognition. The problem is what are you willing to give back? Are you doing these things just for yourself? You're doing these things. I get this question all the time. Hey, Simon, I want to be a public speaker. How do I get into the industry? And my question is, well, what's your message? Well, I don't know yet. So wait. So why do you want to be a public speaker? Like, I never wanted to be a public speaker. By the way, I still don't want to be a public speaker. What I want to do is spread a message, something that I desperately believe in. And so, there used to be a time where people got famous because of their contribution. You were a political leader, or you were a scientist, or you climbed Mount Everest. Like, we admired you, and you got your alpha status. You became sort of an influencer because of your contribution to something. And now we live in a world where you can become an influencer with no contribution whatsoever. You can hack the system, get more followers, all the rest of it. Even entertainers entertain us. And so, the question is why do you want to be an influencer? Great. You want to be an influencer. Why do you want to be an influencer? What is so important that you're willing to sacrifice all kinds of things to do something for someone else? And you choose to use YouTube or whatever, medium to spread your message. And I think you have to know what you stand for, and you have to know why you're going into it. Otherwise, it's totally a selfish pursuit. And you may have some short-term success, but eventually we'll move on to the next shiny object. If you want to have lasting influence, if you want to maintain the capacity to inspire people, you have to stand for something.
So you don't think it's a bad thing, in a sense that, there's all these people wanting to be a YouTuber or vlogger. Like, it sounds like you're fine with it, just as so that you're serving the right people. I guess that's what I'm hearing from you.
I just want to know you're doing it for the right reasons. Like, if somebody wants to be on Broadway, or if somebody wants to be on television, I mean, that's just the modern version of it. I want to be on YouTube. I mean, like, okay, I get it. The problem is that we see influencers make money. And so do we want to be an influencer so we can make money? And it leads to some weird things. There was a story just a few years ago of a husband and wife, or a boyfriend and girlfriend, I don't remember, who would do stunts to try and get more followers. And they did a stunt where she took a loaded gun, and he took a big dictionary, I think it was like a big fat book, and put it on his chest, and she shot him in the chest thinking that the dictionary would stop the bullet. And she shot and killed the person she loves on YouTube because of this stupid stunt for followers. And the question is what will we do for followers? Are we driven to spread a message, or are we driven to get more followers? And that's a really important distinction. If you have a clear message, the followers will come. If you're doing it for the followers, you're going to do stupid things to get the followers. And that's where ethical fading starts to set in, and we start to sort of, weird things start to happen. There's also research that people who are influencers are actually the least influential people in our society. They were influential once, which is the thing that got them to the position. But then once they were there, now that they're making money and people are relying on them to spread the message, they actually become much more cautious and actually a lot less influential.
Okay.
Anyway, I thought that's interesting. But anyway.
Well, Simon, we got the Q&A is blowing up, and we got a whole bunch of folks asking questions. So we'll sort of jump back and forth between this. And Carter Barrett asks, what do you wish you had done when you were in university, getting close to graduation? I don't know if there's any regrets on your mind, but what would you have done?
What would I have done? What?
What do you wish you had done when you were in university? Perhaps if there's something that you regret in university, maybe I should have joined a club. Maybe I should have gotten, met more people. What would you have done more if you were graduating?
That's a good question. I liked the path that I was on. And the path that I was on, I ended up doing something else. I went to law school, but I dropped out of law school because I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer. But I think the thing that is important to remember about university is that it's not just the education that we receive, but it's rather the sociability. We learn to make friends. For some of us, we leave home for the first time, and it's the first time you get to sort of be kind of independent, just a little bit, sort of semi-independent, like a halfway house. And I think to practice those skills, to practice those human skills, to practice being there for friends in need, to practice asking for help. I think those are some of the most important things. And the great thing about college is it's not real life yet, but you get to practice some real life skills.
I love that. I love that. Simon, one of the things that I really believe in is this idea of having your sort of own personal moat or your unfair advantage. Like, what is your superhero skill in the world? If you're a university, how do you start finding what you are world class at? Or maybe you shouldn't. I don't even know if it's important when you're in university. Can you talk a little bit about your take on building your own personal moat?
Yeah, I think it's really important to learn about yourself, to view yourself as a sort of a test subject. For example, how do you learn? Do you learn by reading books, or do you learn by attending class and listening? So I can't learn from reading. It doesn't matter how many textbooks I read, I'll retain none of it.
You're like a world famous author. I thought you'd be consuming books like crazy.
No, not as much as you'd think. But I learned from talking and listening. Right. So I had to have good professors. I couldn't have boring professors and then just go read the book and take the test. Right. I had to have good professors who were good at explaining things because I had to go to class. I couldn't skip class because if I skipped class, I wouldn't learn. I'm an oral learner. Right. I have to hear the things and I have to take notes. And taking notes on a computer is not better. Taking notes by hand is better. There's lots of data on this that kids who take notes on computers can collect more information, but kids who take notes on paper are forced to discern. You can't collect everything. So you're forced to discern what's important, what's not important. So you become better at assessing information. And so I have to listen and I have to take notes. And that's how I learn now. I call people, I talk to people, I share my ideas out loud. It's all how I learn. So learning how you learn, I think, is really, really important. And taking classes that put you in a position of strength. In other words, take a good professor who's good at explaining rather than cutting class and just doing the reading. Hey, if you can learn from reading, more power to you. Then make sure you take classes with good textbooks. But I think that's invaluable. Learning about yourself, learning how you function under stress, learning, are you good? I'm better under pressure. So when I do my work early, believe it or not, the work is actually not as good as if I procrastinate and I have the pressure. I like the pressure. The question is knowing when to actually get the work done. But and I think learning about yourself and learning how you learn and learning how you produce is really, really important. I also believe that they should do grades as ratios. We get an A or a B. Well, what does that tell you about somebody? It tells you they accomplished a certain level of understanding of the subject matter, sure, but it doesn't tell you about the person. So I always thought that grades should be given as a ratio. So did you get an A over 50 hours of studying or a B over a 2, right? So if somebody has 50 hours to study, they'll give you top marks.
Right.
But if somebody only has 2 hours, they can still do pretty well. It's not better or worse, but it's important to know about yourself, because then when you go in the real world, if somebody wants A quality work all the time and you can give them A quality work, if you have the time, you can get that job. But if they just need people to operate under pressure and work fast and good enough is good, then a B over a 2 is a good person to hire. Yeah. Again, it's not better or worse. It's understanding how you learn and your ability to perform.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. We had a couple of questions from the audience, really to do with motivation or staying positive. One of the questions is, how do you stay optimistic, positive in situations with uncertainty? And as a piggyback, what's some advice you give to somebody who is lacking motivation?
So what I think is so funny, and this happened a lot in COVID, people are like, during these uncertain times, and like all times are uncertain.
Yeah.
There's never been a time ever in history that was certain. All that's happened is something that we didn't expect took place that reminded us that things are uncertain and time is uncertain. And so when you say, how do you stay positive in uncertain times, or how do you stay positive in dark times? Being optimistic is not naive. It's not blind positivity. I'm not positive all the time. That's impossible. That's a psychosis. Either that or you're lying. But optimism is the belief, the undying belief that the future is bright. So even during the darkest times of COVID, and I went through the struggle, and I went through the trauma and the depression during COVID. Every single one of us did, and some of us still are. It comes and goes. But at the end of the day, I knew that the future was bright. Yeah. And even though it hurts now, and even though it's a struggle now, if we stick together and help each other, we will come through this stronger than we went in.
So Hey, Simon, there's lots of organizations that are building their work from home strategies, and they are, some organizations are saying, you can work from home anytime, anywhere. Don't ever come back to the office. What do you think the implications are for trust and for innovation?
Well, just like it's hard to, you can meet someone online, but at some point you're going to have to meet them in real life if you want to spend the rest of your life with them, if you want to actually build deep, meaningful relationship. And work is the same. It's hard to onboard a new person to the team and have them build deep, meaningful trust with the team without knowing anybody. We can like them, we can get along with them, we can start to establish trust, we can see them as reliable, which is not the same as trust. But at the end of the day, human contact really matters. And for people who say that business travel is over and the office is closed, it's unrealistic, because at the end of the day, human beings, which we've all learned from being quarantined, crave the contact with other human beings. And you just wait. We're all having Zoom meetings and not going on any business trips. And once the world opens up, the first person to get on a plane and go meet with a potential client and gets the business because they took the energy and time to go meet them and shake their hand, well, guess what? Everybody's going to be going again.
One of the things I feel bad about for, obviously this audience, mostly university students, that, they've been excited to go work somewhere, like to sit in an office, to dress up and to go somewhere. And now they're sitting at home. I just feel like if you're young and you're ambitious and you're driven, and you're waiting to get into the workforce and you're sitting at home in your closet still, like it's sad.
The good news is, I think, what will end up happening is for all the companies that are enamored by the idea of not having offices because it saves a bunch of money, it's not going to work. Because as you just said, we want to go to work. You want to be able to roam the halls and knock on a door of someone and be like, hey, can I just talk to you for a minute? That's how you build a mentor. That's how you find a mentor. You can't find a mentor on Zoom. There's no roaming around. There's no bumping into somebody in the hallway and be like, oh, I meant to tell you. You actually have to be, that takes so much work to be super prescriptive. You can't just have a brain fart and something happens, or if you do, it makes more email for someone. I will go back to the office. And I think it's very, very important for young people who are entering the workforce, because as I said, that's how you'll make friends and mentors, which is being at the office. So it'll go back. I think what will happen is more flexibility will be built in. So instead of somebody asking permission, can I work from home next Thursday? What'll happen is somebody will just say in the morning, hey, I'm working from home today, and everybody will be fine with it. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I love that. Listen, Simon, we have a couple minutes left. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was really around, you had this great rant once about millennials. And, the audience here, many of them are Gen Z. Do you see a difference between millennials and Gen Z? I actually believe that Gen Z actually works harder, but perhaps the entitlement piece has just accelerated. So just a quick take on Gen Z.
I look, there's some of the same things. I'm still concerned about the overuse and over-reliance on social media and devices to form relationships or to maintain relationships. So that still concerns me. The Gen Z is an activist generation, where millennials were sometimes called slacktivists, where they would text their discontent, or they would post their discontent on Twitter, and just trying to drive the discussion. That was the big thing. We're speaking out to drive the discussion. Discussion doesn't change things. People showing up changes things, and they would text their discontent on, post their discontent on Twitter while sitting in the back of their Uber going to brunch. The Gen Z is an activist generation. They organize, they show up, they form rallies, they boycott school to make a point. They're way more out there. They're taking bigger risks. They're putting themselves out there. And I love Gen Z, because I think you're filling in the gaps where, the millennials may have picked the right themes, but they didn't really move the ball down the court. But I think this young generation is pretty spectacular, actually.
There was a dip with the millennials, but Simon,
okay.
I think you provide.
We like to shit on millennials, but at the end of the day, we have to remember that millennials and Gen Z, there's something fantastic about both generations that's way better than the older generations, which is their idea of inclusion. If you're a millennial or you're a Gen Z, you don't care what someone's sexual orientation is. You don't care what their gender identity is. You don't care where they're from. It's just you're a guy and you want to wear a dress. no one cares. Like, it's just a big nothing, you know? And in fact, you understand that gender identity and sexual orientation are completely separate subjects. Older generations don't understand that. They can't get that. So I love how both those generations are so inclusive of people who don't look or sound or act like them. Love that.
Let's go. I love that. Simon, you've dropped so many bombs here at Legacy. We really appreciate all your time. We know how busy you are. And you served us today, and you really provided some amazing insights for this group. On behalf of Legacy, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure.
Thanks very much. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other.